Investigators are pursuing a worldwide hunt to learn if shoe bomb suspect Richard Reid had ties to known terrorists. The Wall Street Journal's Daniel Pearl was on the Reid story immediately. Pearl traveled to Karachi, Pakistan, the heart of Islamic extremism, with a plan to interview Reid's alleged mentor, Sheik Gilani. Gilani is an Islamic extremist leader with a following in the U.S. At the Wall Street Journal, Pearl was known for his investigative stories. His writing reflected both his extraordinary curiosity and deep-rooted concern for the world. Pearl's closest friend at the Journal was Robert Frank. He reads a piece of Pearl's writing.
Doha, Qatar. American blues can make you sad. Russian work songs can make you suffer. The fervent belief of many in the Persian Gulf is that pearl diving songs can make you go blind. And it was, again, a classic Danny Reid. You just couldn't not read the rest of that story. It was so provocative.
Anti-American sentiment was high in Pakistan as American bombers pounded neighboring Afghanistan. From his base in Bombay, India, Pearl tried to contact Islamic militants to get an interview with the elusive Gilani. After weeks of phone calls, Pearl thought he had a break on the story. A man calling himself Bashir offered to arrange a meeting. Through a sequence of emails, Bashir lured Pearl to Karachi with the promise of an interview with Gilani. Ikram Segal manages a security firm that provides bodyguards.
After some time, he said, okay, if I go up outside Karachi, I will request you, but I feel hemmed in.
Pearl decided not to use bodyguards in Karachi, concerned that it might scare off Bashir and Gilani. In Karachi, Pearl and his 6 months pregnant wife, Marianne, stayed with their dear friend and Wall Street Journal colleague, Asra Nomani.
He was getting into the car to go off for his interviews. He was just, Danny. I mean, he was fumbling around with his stuff. It was a beautiful sunny day like today.
It was January 23rd. In between a series of meetings, Pearl phoned Bashir to firm up the Gilani interview for that evening.
Marianne was going to cook this Cuban dish that night. Our plan was to then meet for dinner that night. He was going to come back for dinner.
At 6 p.m., Pearl stopped off at the office of Jamil Youssef, a reliable source and criminal investigator.
He came, I met him, and he literally came and sat down over here. He was trying to trace the email of Richard Reid. That's the time he said that Richard Reid had some connection with P. Gilani, and the email was diverted to P. Gilani.
Finally, Bashir confirmed that he had arranged the interview with Gilani.
And then Danny called, at about 6:30 and said that he'd be coming home a little bit late, but he was off to go to the interview. And so, we all got dressed up, and Marianne was busy in the kitchen.
He received a phone call on his mobile, on the cell phone, and talking to somebody, he says, yes, I'm very close by, and I will be there at 7 o'clock. And he said he's going to interview P. Gilani.
For his own safety, Pearl arranged to meet Bashir in a public place.
He went at about 7 o'clock to the village restaurant, which is very close from my office. And the car was parked down here where he was asked to meet him.
Then Marianne started calling him about 7:30 just to see how things were going. And I had known from calling Danny before that he never turned his mobile phone off.
After several hours, Asra and Marianne were still unable to reach Pearl on his cell phone.
We went to his laptop to figure out who had he gone to see, and then we started reading the emails from this guy. He described himself as Bashir, who had arranged all of the meetings. We set a mark for ourselves for 2 a.m. If he didn't come back, we'd start calling places. And so that's when we called the Wall Street Journal and the U.S. government.
Pearl's parents, Udaya and Ruth, were at home in Los Angeles.
Marianne called. It was Wednesday night, and she said something bad happened to Danny. He didn't come back last night.
Immediately, the family knew that Pearl's Jewish heritage would heighten his danger. As an American and a Jew, he would be a powerful symbol and the target of hatred for Islamic militants.
And from then on, it was just 24/7, a mission to try to find Danny.
Bashir had been waiting for Pearl at the village restaurant, but Bashir was a phony name. His real name was Sheik Omar, a notorious Islamic extremist. Sheik Omar had set a trap for Pearl. His intention from the outset was to capture him. Gilani had been a red herring.
This is the type of car they were using, and it was parked here, and Danny was brought in, and he was taken very comfortably in the car. And there's a guy on the motorbike standing right across on the road, and who was supposed to follow. And he was taken from here straight down, and there was no rush to it.
We immediately realized it was a very dangerous situation.
Kavita Menon, former Asia coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists, led CPJ's effort to find Pearl.
They took Danny Pearl to the outskirts of Karachi to a compound that is owned by a man who's linked to the Al Rashid Trust, which has been identified by the U.S. as a charity that does fund militant groups.
Nobody would suspect, no screams would be heard. If you even suspect of an abduction, it's a very quiet and desolate place, very scary to be there at any given time.
Marianne says that she knew from the very beginning that it was Al-Qaeda, you know.
4 days after his kidnapping, U.S. news organizations received photographs of Pearl with a gun against his head. There were also ransom demands, including the release of Pakistani prisoners held at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, a demand the U.S. government would find impossible to grant. Paul Steiger, managing editor of the Wall Street Journal, led the paper's urgent efforts to attempt to free Pearl.
I tried to communicate to his captors by any means available, encouraging people to make statements supporting his release, and how sympathetic he was to Islam, that their purposes would be best served by releasing him and not harming him.
On February 12th, police arrested Sheik Omar, the mastermind behind the kidnapping plot, along with 3 accomplices.
The police investigation established it was Sheik Omar who had picked him up from the roadside restaurant and took him with him.
On February 23rd, Pearl's death was confirmed when a video of his brutal murder was released to the Pakistani police. The FBI arrived at the home of Pearl's parents with the somber news.
One day they came with serious faces, and we understood that the news is bad.
The police investigator told Marianne, you know, I'm sorry, I couldn't bring your Danny home. And those were words that, you know, we were never expecting. I really can't believe it.
I see the note from Steiger and Peter Kahn, and it's, you know, just etched in my brain forever based on information from the U.S. State Department and Pakistani officials. We now believe Danny Pearl has been killed by his captors. And I just kept staring at the email, not believing it and thinking that I misread it and hoping the words were not killed but released by his captors, and my mind was sort of blank. I just couldn't believe it.
On May 18th, U.S. officials finally confirmed they had found Pearl's body. It was excavated from a site on the outskirts of Karachi. Sheik Omar and the 3 other defendants were tried in a Pakistani court. Raja Qureshi was the prosecutor.
I would say Omar Sheikh's trial was a successful trial, and there was overwhelming evidence. There was judicial confession, which culminated into the death sentence of Omar Sheikh, and the remaining 3 accused were sentenced to life imprisonment.
It was later determined that Gilani was not involved in the kidnapping plot.
Omar Sheikh wanted perhaps an American and a Jew. The video that was released of slaughtering Daniel Pearl, the message to the world was that today the Muslims were trying to slaughter American Jews, which was only to generate sense of fear.
I think the murder of Danny Pearl really made everybody painfully aware of the cost of covering conflicts.
Berkeley journalism dean Orville Schell sees the Pearl murder as a significant shift Today, journalists are seen as symbolizing the countries they report for.
Now, in Danny Pearl's case, the fact that he was Jewish probably was identification that fatally played into what happened to him.
U.S. authorities say they have in custody others involved in this plot. They now believe Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind behind September 11th, actually wielded the sword that killed Pearl. As the investigations continue, friends of Pearl say that they are determined to keep his memory alive for his son and for everyone who works as a journalist.
You know, I see him in his son. I really see the twinkle in his eye when Adam laughs. I can really feel Danny's presence. There must be a continuum between life and death, because that's how it feels. I mean, it doesn't feel like there was just an end to his life with this death.
Rather than silencing him or what he believed in, the terrorists have actually made what he stood for stronger. The pursuit of truth by journalists around the world, they've made that stronger. For all of the horror that this has brought on us, we take comfort that that legacy has become stronger.
Udea and Ruth Pearl keep their son's memory alive with the Daniel Pearl Foundation, which promotes cross-cultural understanding through journalism and music.
That's how I would like him to be remembered, with a head high, determined, disciplined, and playful at the same time.